Welcome back to the show, everyone.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Doesn't that seem
Honestly,
like a
Dina,
loaded
I'm
question
not
these days?
sure.
How are you doing?
How you doing?
What's up? Oh, well.
Oh, remember that? Remember those commercials? What's
Yeah.
up?
What's
What's up?
up?
Did we just date ourselves?
For
I
those,
thought
yeah,
those were
totally.
so
I was
ridiculous.
going to say our older audience will understand that. And then my sister and I started doing it when I still lived in Chicago and she lived here and she'd pick up the phone and I just go, what's that? And she'd know it was me immediately. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But it's a loaded question. I realize when I start a session, I'll say, "How are you?" And I'll oftentimes say, "How was your week?" Or,
Yeah.
"What do you want to talk about?" or whatever. And
Yeah.
when I first see people, and it's always when I do assessments and I've just kind of done my spiel of confidentiality and what are the exceptions and yada yada yada. And then we start, I'll always preface it with, okay, this is just going to seem like straight to the point and very awkward because you don't tend to do this out in real life. But tell me why you want to come see me. Like, bam,
Yep.
just get right to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like how we how we do ourselves out there. It's slow disclosure, and you get to know someone and kind of feel them out and see if they align with you and that kind of thing. And with a therapist, you're there to kind of, talk about everything and just sort of put it out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, uh, clients will say to me, because I think you and I have talked about this too, and a little bit even before we came on, that our style might be a little bit more self-disclosing, or there are schools of thought where you don't disclose at all. I did after I moved here. I wasn't in therapy, obviously, with my therapist in Chicago anymore because I wasn't there. I tried. Two of my friends were in psychoanalytic therapy, like the couch and everything, and
Oh,
I thought,
yeah.
"Ooh, that sounds. I want to try that. Just to see what it's like." So you lay on the couch, which in itself is weird, and then your therapist like sits back here. You don't see him, so I can hear her talking, but I am not seeing her, which was so antithetical to the therapy that I'd done for like 20 years prior to that, which was all relational.
Yeah.
It was all about, me seeing her, seeing me, and all this stuff. So it was really weird at first. I didn't end up staying in it. I think I did it maybe for close to a year, but it just wasn't. I mean, I worked through some things that I need to. It was very different. And that therapist I would ask questions about her instead of her, even if it was something benign. She'd say, "Tell me why it is you're curious about that." It was always that kind of pushback to
Mm-hmm.
the client. And that's a school of thought. It's the therapist is a blank slate, but more specifically, they're not sharing themselves at all because they're not there to take up that space. The space is only for the client. And to me, and that was a school of thought and the school of thought for a long time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And certain people, like I went to the Adler School. Adler broke off from the Vienna Circle, which was Freud's baby, because he thought there's more to therapy than the expert sitting behind and saying things. He really focused in on relationships, and what a client's pond was, if you will. What's going on in their family, what's going on in their community, what's going on in that larger community, and misfits and so that, like, spider doesn't float in the air, it's in a web. So looking at the web. Um, and so that started to change a little bit. But now, like, my way of doing therapy is so relational, right? There's some give and take. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I before we were on all telehealth, I have my office in my house, so that was sort of, it's kind of hard for them to not see parts of you. And that was really from someone that I trained with in Chicago, a couple that I trained with doing psychodrama, and they had their private practice in their home. It was a really good model for that. Like, you can do that.
Yeah.
But for me, like as a client, I remember really wondering stuff about my therapist, which is totally normal, right? I
Yeah.
could see a picture on her desk that I thought might be her adult kids, and I wanted to ask about it. And then finally, I did get up are those like your sons? And she's like, "Oh yeah," and told me about them. And she wasn't telling me everything to self, but I had asked about it, right? And sort of wanting to know more. Um, for me, I've shared on here before, for me, organized religion is not an important part of my life. And even though I was started to be raised Catholic, Christianity isn't a big part of my life. I knew that she had been a nurse, and I knew that she had been a pastoral counselor. Pastoral, did I say that right? Mike, is it pasture?
Pastoral?
Pastoral, yeah, not. I'm
Pastoral?
saying like a horse as out to pasture.
No, that's okay. I have always I always am corrected on the word
Pastoral.
nuclear. Nuclear.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
I say
exactly.
nuclear, like I don't anyway, and
Yeah, yeah,
everyone always is like, "Okay, Bush." And I'm
yeah.
like, "Okay, listen, I don't know." Like I have
Right.
to yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I was always, and one of my friends was, who I've reconnected with on Facebook many years later, is a Episcopal priest, a woman, lesbian woman, and which should have been clue number 928 that I might be gay at the time. I didn't know, but uh, I would talk about some religious trauma that I'd suffered, and
Mhm.
really staunch atheism, and never ever got the feeling from her that she was judging me or rejecting that in any way at all. Much to my surprise, many years later, to find out how important that was in her life, like daily scripture reading and things like that. And I was like, I was sort of blown away as someone who was
Mhm.
becoming a therapist, that I could have a therapist that had that different a set of values, but was still accepting of me and didn't push her agenda on me and didn't give me at all the feeling that where I was coming from was wrong or whatever, right? So
Mhm.
that you can hold that space for those things, and that's just sort of like genuine curiosity. And then we get taught in school, and I teach my students this: if you get to a cliff where you feel like you're no longer able to have empathy for that person or understand that person, um, or you're starting out with someone that you think could be an issue with that, you probably shouldn't be seeing them in therapy. There are other therapists out there. I've had students draw the line at, they're like, I don't think I could ever work with a sex offender. And I'm like, then don't.
Yep.
You probably shouldn't do that. Or someone who's perpetrating DV, or there's a lot of, I can't work with the perpetrator, so on and so forth. But in today's climate, there's a lot of um, discourse around, what are someone's value set, and like, what is their political leanings? Because it's so divided, right? And can someone be perfectly honest with you if they project it onto you? They think you have a particular leaning, etc. And I've had fairly a good number of clients over the years that works. I've had some fundamentalist clients over the years that I've seen, and the therapy, I thought, and they thought too, was great. For me, I approached it more from a curiosity standpoint, not like, I don't live my life by these tenets, but you do, and let's talk about them. I want to be curious and learn about where you're coming from, right? If someone has a value set, though, that is, I mean, then we have some things in our ethics code that help us with that. Like, you're not supposed to. You can break confidentiality if you find out a client has been using you to, like, commit a crime or
Yep.
something along those lines, or is going to commit a crime or something like
Yep.
that. But I think it's a real, because it's a relational thing, and you and I do tend to self-disclose a little bit more, benign things, but it's relational. You need to know things about me, and where I'm coming from with those things. It certainly becomes an issue, I think, in places where people need to see a therapist and there aren't enough available, let's say. I mean, that's becoming less and less with telehealth and those kinds of things. Um, but I've had clients, and I know you have too, because you can think neurodivergently, say, I don't want to see anybody besides a neuroaffirming
Mhm.
therapist. It's
Mhm.
not so much like it's a value set, but
Mhm.
it's, you're not going to understand me. I have clients that come to me specifically because they know I'm queer, or I've had people come specifically to me because I don't judge and I have a fair amount of understanding and education on, non-traditional relationships, BDSM, and some of those kinds of things. I had one client be really sheepish for many, many weeks to tell me that he was into, I think they're called furries. So they dress
Mhm.
in like what, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, tell me about that. I've nenever heard of that. And then I did some research. the openness to just the other is what's important here, but not everybody is going to be that way. And at what point could it get in the way of the therapeutic relationship? I mean, it could theoretically, right?
Yeah. I mean, my mind goes back to like we typically go back to self-awareness, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like not only are we promoting self-awareness or self-knowledge in our clients because that's the foundation for like informed decision making, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
or self-management. But as psychologists and therapists, we need to know ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, this is why I think one, psychology as a course is getting eliminated from,
Yeah, the anti-DEI policies.
yeah,
Yeah,
from different
yeah.
like high school curriculums
Mm-hmm.
and things. And it's because inherently in psychology, we are defining our identity,
Yeah,
and our identity is it evolves, it
yeah.
ebbs and flows and changes based on our values and our experiences and our cultural beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and social expectations and social communities. Yeah, like so inevitably we're talking about gender and
Yeah, yeah,
sex and
yeah,
culture and
yeah.
and so this inevitable in who we are as people.
Right.
But I think what kind or style of therapy you practice as a therapist or psychologist
Mm-hmm.
is really important
Yeah,
based
yeah,
on your knowledge of how you work the best.
yeah,
I could not I did a little bit of analytic work, but and then I really settled into more dynamic,
yeah,
psychodynamic work,
yeah, yeah.
which is inevitably just more relational,
Right.
kind of more Jungian kind of based work, which is where I
Yeah, that's what
probably did.
my long-term therapist was,
Yeah, most
psychodynamic.
my long-term, most formative probably work in my life was Jungian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so necessary. Like I that was
So
very,
just
very
yelling
important.
at the dogs. So, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I find that my job, eh, especially like with my neurodivergent clients, which all my clients are
yeah.
neurodivergent, what they say to me a lot of times is like, "Gwen, I need something to bump up against."
Yeah.
Like, I already have a difficult time with like social connections to
Mm.
people in general.
Yeah.
And I need information. Like, I need
Yeah.
information to know how to manage myself in the context of this therapeutic
Yeah.
relationship.
Blank slate isn't going to work
Blank
well.
slate,
Yeah.
actually open-ended questions, um, promotion of open, like kind of self-reflection without any
Yeah.
context or framework.
Yeah.
That's dysregulating. It's
Yes.
distressing and
Yeah.
dysregulating.
Yeah.
So I find like I tend to disclose more than I probably was trained to do.
It's a really good point. I mean, do you think
Mhm.
in working with neurodivergence, if you just say, well, tell me about that, it is dysregulating and
It's
the trust starts to
dysregulating.
go out the window.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll say to clients, I'll answer your question, but if you wouldn't mind, I want you to dig into you a little bit more, and then I
Yeah.
promise I will
Yep.
tell you. And that usually gives enough of a container that they can tolerate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot. I give a lot of choices like,
Hmm.
um, hey, like I I think that there's something here.
Hmm.
Can we do a little bit of this
Yeah,
before I answer that question? Or
exactly. Yeah,
um I want to know why you want to know why you're asking that question.
yeah. But I will
And
answer it.
but
Yeah,
I will answer if it's related, so we do a lot of that. But
yeah,
what comes up sometimes is when I I'm very passionate about affirming care. I'm also really
yeah,
passionate about awareness and acceptance
yeah,
of difference.
yeah.
So I kind of reveal my political place.
Yeah,
And
especially
that's been really
nowadays, because
interesting
yeah,
lately.
it's been made political. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it's mind blowing to me when the anti DEI started to happen because it's so core to what we do as psychologists. It's so core to
Mhm.
our
It's
training,
core.
to be affirming. And yes, there's this emerging thing that we seem to be seeing a lot more. Ha ha, autism was one of them. But gender identity and all of those things that are blossoming now that are scaring some people, or there's misinformation people are getting, my father being one. Um, and that sense of this is human nature and we should be inclusive. And here's why, right? We should have varying perspectives and we should learn something about it, right? I mean, when I uh, was first in therapy, being gay was still in the DSM. You know, that was the
Oh, yeah.
80s, 1987, I
What
think
was
that
it?
it got taken out.
Dis it was not dysphoria. It was, what was it? Do you
I
know what
can't
was
even
the
remember what it
diagnosis?
was called. It's probably homosexuality, blah, blah, blah. They used that word a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm
that
trying
was
to
in
remember.
1987, I think, is when
Yeah.
it got removed. So technically, when I started therapy that same year, it was still in there. I still remember after I moved out here, came out of the closet, was on the phone with did a phone session with my old therapist, and she started to do this stuff about, well, it doesn't surprise me, the relationship with your mother and blah, blah, blah. And I just called BS. I'm like, that is not what's going on here. And that was in 2002. And to her credit, she's like, oh, I know, I'm being stupid. But you can see how that emerged there with more knowing and more learning about people's perspectives and more acceptance. It's been politicized. I
Yeah.
can still remember before me and my wife could get married, even my dad was saying, I don't know why this has become a political issue. It shouldn't be a political issue.
Yeah.
It's a human rights issue. It's not a political issue. And I hadn't thought about it that way prior to that. So there are so many what we call values or acceptance or demographics, whatever you want to call them, about people that are now in a political sphere. And it's so divided that if you're going to a therapist that is one way or the other, you have fears to talk to someone about that, you know?
Yeah.
Or if you have a therapist who won't tell you or feels like a misfit. Like if I've worked with all kinds of theological background people coming in my practice, but if someone needed someone who is more knows more about it and could like quote Bible verses and do like semi Bible study in the therapy with them, and that's a modality. That's not me. I don't
Yeah.
know enough about that. I don't consider myself competent in that.
Yeah.
Can I talk to what some of my clients that are struggling who aren't Christian but other religions, what it's like to be a marginalized group in that regard? Sure, I can talk about that, right? So it really does have to be, if you're seeing someone or working with someone who seems closed off to even telling you where they're coming from, that's a red flag, even
Yeah.
without self-disclosing, you know? Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of things here, right? As therapists, our job is to create a trusting, safe space for you
Hmm.
to explore
Hmm.
yourself.
And
And a lot
it
of
should be genuine on the therapist's part too.
genuine,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
And that if you don't feel like you can disclose
Mhm,
in the session,
mhm,
is that because your therapist is exerting their opinions
mhm. Or judgments, maybe even is
or
better.
making judgments,
Mhm,
and or
mhm.
you are having a difficult time
Yeah,
with acceptance or shame or something
yeah,
in
yeah,
that regard, which is understandable too, because,
yeah,
a lot of times there's a lived experience that informs why we might mask or guard,
yeah, yeah.
um, protect. I totally understand. Um, but it's tricky. Like
Mhm.
I think at the end of the day, we are always like, well, it depends, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard. Therapy is unlike any relationship that exists out there. It's not a
Mhm.
friendship,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah.
And in so many ways, we are teachers. In
Mhm,
so many ways, we are parents. In so
mhm,
many
mhm.
ways, um, we are, it might feel like friends because we're
Yeah.
listening and we're lending that ear, but it's weirdly none of those things in
Right.
isolation.
Yeah.
Like it's a
Yeah.
place that has a purpose.
To provide
And
that container. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, and I just
Yeah.
think like it is such a tricky place to be. And as
Mhm.
therapists, like I was just telling Dana before we hit the record button that because I tend to self-disclose, um, in an attempt to create um a more comfortable space
Mhm.
in session, um that can be difficult for some. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I have to be careful, and I make mistakes all the time.
Sure.
And I don't know though sometimes that I am, or it's too
Mm.
much or too little, unless like a
Mhm.
client tells me they're
Yeah.
uncomfortable with something. And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but to get to that point, there needs to be
Mhm.
quite a bit of trust.
Yeah, and sometimes self-disclosure, I'm thinking about humor things that
Oh yeah.
someone that I worked with recently had a similar early childhood that I did in terms of neglect. And we were kind of, I mean, the coping mechanism is sort of laugh, right? And I said, oh, yeah, not me telling my therapist for the first time one of those stories and me laughing and her going, and then the client just totally cracked up and we were both laughing because it's like, so it could, that's in a way it's self-disclosure. I'm saying that I have some similar background to that. And I can really understand when you're saying that you just thought it was normal then. In fact, you guys sort of laughed about it and then your therapist was horrified. It's sort of fun to know someone has had that same experience, or
Yeah.
you guys can laugh about it even if I'm the therapist and then say, okay, ha ha ha, but really tell me about it, right? But
Yeah.
I want to get out ahead of the shame thing. And if I'll have students tell me, the supervisees, they were telling me about this horrible trauma and the whole time they were smiling. And I don't, they're like, that was terrible that they were doing that. And I told them, why are you smiling? And I'm like, don't, no, 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 no. Hear the story, notice the reaction in yourself, and just say, what does it feel like to tell that story? Well, they were so disconnected from their feelings. And I'm like, yeah, and why do you think that's the case? It's called dissociation and it's adaptive. You don't
Yep.
just crash through that wall immediately.
Yep.
So those kinds of things are, if it's just a blank slate, they have to know. They have to know your whole history, what all your issues are. They
Yep.
can look at you and know that you're an ethnic minority. They can probably look at me and get an idea that I'm not cisgender. Those kinds of things are typically clients can figure out for themselves. But those things come up in our world. They inevitably, especially working with neurodivergent folks, those things are going to come up for sure. Even
Yeah.
political views, and do you accept me even though I have this political view or that political view, or I'm for or against a particular thing? Let's talk about it. I'm not
Yep.
here to change your mind politically. I'm here
Right.
to explore what you want to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's so critical. Like we're
Hmm.
not there to change minds. We
Yeah.
are there to maybe drive some insight
Hmm. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could result in you changing your mind or not.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
that's still a decision that you make. Like as
Yeah.
they're, when clients come to me and they're like, "When I need to know what to do, like tell me what to do." And it's like,
Mm.
"Oh no."
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
that's not, I was like, I'm not, I don't live in your skin,
Yeah.
and in your life. But what
Yeah.
I can do is I can help you look at um or organize information so that you feel
So
more
you can figure it
confident in
out.
making a
Yeah,
decision. I can
that's
do
right.
that, right? Or if it's something where I've been working with a client for a really long time and I just know that they're entering back into a relationship, usually it's like adult children visiting their parents where there
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
quite a bit of
Yeah. Yeah. Conflict.
drama.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, I'll be like, okay, but all I'm gonna say is remember, no more than 5 days. You established no more than 5 days.
5 days. I say 3 days.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever it is for that, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
hotel, separate
Yeah.
hotel.
That's right.
So I might
Exactly.
do something like that because we've
Yeah.
already established those things.
Right.
Or I'll say to a client, we have discussed those. Ultimately, if
Hmm.
you feel we get to trust where you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, in the past we've spoken about this, like,
Yeah.
so, I think it's challenging. I mean, again, as a therapist, and we don't work the same way with any
Mhm.
one
No.
client than another. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so vastly different from
Yeah,
each
because it's
other.
relational and you're bringing different
Mhm.
things in. The
Yeah.
dyad's different. Yeah.
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 So, all that to say, it's probably inevitable that you may
Mhm.
have some different opinions than
Yeah.
your therapist or your psychologist because you are two different
And it's
people,
okay. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
okay. And if if you feel like you cannot be your genuine, authentic self in therapy
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
giving it a little bit of a try, then that may
And
just not be the right fit.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's okay to find someone that
Mm.
does jibe with you. Yeah.
Don't just put
Yeah.
up with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Don't
Ju-
recapitulate a relationship where you're not heard. And that's the whole
right.
idea is you don't want to do that.
Don't
Yeah.
do that. Don't do that.
Hmm.
Anyway. All right. Well, Dana,
On that note, be good to you.
be good to you. Be good to others. It's tough.
It
It's a
is
tough
tough.
time right now.
We're
So
living in strange times. Yeah.
strange times. All right. All right,
Hmm.
everyone. We will catch you in the next episode. Bye.